Since the release of the new iPhones, the most common question under my videos and during live streams has been, when is the new ultimate iPhone home screen setup coming? Well, it's here, so let's get to it. For those who are new around here, the ultimate iPhone home screen is a single-page setup, flanked by only the Widgets page on the left and the app drawer on the right. Nothing more. No endless swiping through pages of apps, just one clean, efficient layout where everything is right at my fingertips. The goal behind it is to have instant access to every tool and app I use through a mix of widgets, stacks, shortcuts, and small but meaningful tweaks, removing redundancy and introducing it only where it adds real value. A good example of that is how I've built multiple entry points to my to-do app, since that's one thing that helps me make sure nothing slips through the cracks during the day. That being said, this setup works on any iPhone model, big or small, and while mine lives on the iPhone Air, I'll be using the 17 Pro Max as a clean slate to show you the process step by step. A few important notes before we start. With every new iPhone, I always begin with a fresh install and disable every notification except for WhatsApp and iMessage. The only other app that's allowed to make noise is my email client, but only for certain individuals, something I'll get to in a moment. Using this method together with my notifications folder gives me full control over the flow of incoming information instead of, letting it control me. That being said, I'll start this setup with a fresh wallpaper, this time from my Aquaglass pack, which I'll link below. With that out of the way, I'll start with the lock screen, where you might notice that with this particular wallpaper, I'm taking advantage of the depth effect to add a subtle sense of movement here. On the lock screen itself, I replaced the default camera shortcut with the Lightroom camera, and the reason for that is simple. It helps me separate work photos from my personal gallery, since Lightroom uses its own library and keeps things neatly isolated. My regular camera is of course activated with a camera control button. While here, I'll add 3 widgets. One showing my Tesla's battery level, one for precipitation so I can instantly tell if it's raining outside, and one for Superlist Voice, which is the fastest way to offload tasks, especially while driving.
Stop by the post office.
With that, my lock screen is ready to go. By the way, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe, because why not? Now, onto some internal housekeeping. If you're setting up a new phone, I highly recommend taking a moment to uninstall all the default apps you don't use. Once that's done, the easiest way to start with a clean slate is to grab any random app, move it to an empty home screen, then tap on the dots to expand all screens and delete the rest. That way, you don't have to waste time chasing individual icons or removing widgets one by one. I'll do the same cleanup on the widgets page and also do the same thing to the control center, since I always optimize it for efficiency. The final touch here is to head into settings, home screen and app library, and under search, hide the Siri search icon from the home screen because it's redundant, since I can trigger the same search by swiping simply down anywhere on the screen.
Another housekeeping thing that I do is in settings, home screen and app library, and that is for all new apps to be added directly into the app library instead of taking space on the home screen. So next time I install a new app, it won't mess up my screen.
With all that done and keeping my philosophy for reachability in mind, I start arranging my screen so that everything is easy to access single-handedly. To aid that, under Accessibility Touch, I enable the double tap feature to instantly open the control center when needed. At this point, I can begin organizing my widgets page, starting with my top left awareness stack, a group of widgets that keep me informed about my health, sleep activity, recovery score, and more. It's a mix of data from Apple Health and the Ultra Human ring that I'm wearing. Right next to it is my listening stack, which combines YouTube Music, Audible, and a broadcast shortcut. You see, whenever I start listening to something, tapping on the AirPlay shortcut instantly lets me choose where to send the audio, to my Mac, my HomePod, or anywhere else nearby. I've explained exactly how to set this up in my newsletter, which I'll link below. All widget stacks have the widget suggestions turned off, by the way, because that would mess up the entire layout. But for those two, I keep Smart Rotate on since the iPhone tends to predict when I'll want to listen to something during the day. Below these two stacks sits the Brave browser's news section, followed by my Hey Email client. And at the bottom of the widgets page, I've got my car widget stacked with a custom entertainment widget you might recognize from before. It's essentially my mini drawer widget, but in a medium format, which I'll show you how to build yourself toward the end of this episode. This is a far more elegant way to access my favorite streaming platforms in the evening. I swipe to this stack manually whenever it's time for a little Netflix and chill. Some of you might have noticed a very weird maneuver that I did, and that is to move the widget to an empty home screen so I can stack it. And that is on purpose because sometimes, actually many times, iOS is acting weird and I'm forced to move widgets to an empty screen so I can stack them before I can actually grab them and move them back in place. See? It disappeared. So let's go back. Boom. Come over here, please. Nope. Okay, let's try one more time. Maybe here, and then do this. Now it's working. So yeah, you need to speak iOS here. Talking about chill, some of you already know how important it is for me to be able to prop my phone. Whether it's during FaceTime calls while watching something or even when I just want to prop the phone on my desk. And the Taurus All-Stand Q3 Air case is ideal for that because it doubles as a pocket tripod. The case has a super soft and rounded shape that is a pleasure to hold, yet surprisingly grippy thanks to what Taurus calls dot matrix anti-slip design. There are also smart touches like the built-in airbags and reinforced corners that give it solid impact resistance without adding bulk. The built-in ring is satisfyingly clicky to rotate, letting me instantly flip it open and set the phone down however I like. Perfect for FaceTime selfies, group photos, or just casual downtime. It locks securely at different angles, feels sturdy, and of course it doesn't compromise on the magnetic strength when it's time to attach something to the back of the iPhone. The All-Stand Q3 Air comes in 4 beautiful colors, and I'll link it below so you can check it out yourself. Now, although I have my Tesla widget in the widgets page, I actually use a faster way to interact with the car. Through a quick action shortcut I've created and tied to my action button. With this menu, I can trigger Sentry Mode, precondition the car, open the front, all with a single press and hold. I've also added a scan option through the Files app, which is the fastest way for me to capture receipts or invoices throughout the day. This kind of quick action menus are something I've covered in more detail also in my newsletter. So if I'm not walking you through every step here, you can rest assured that information is in the newsletter. So I encourage you to check it out after watching this episode because everything there is free to read and explore. Did you know that you can add power on and off sounds upon booting or powering off your iPhone? This is something that can be found under Settings, Accessibility, and scrolling down until you see Audio and Visual. And here you have power on and off sounds, which sounds something like this. Not bad. Now onto the home screen itself. Things here can be broken down into 3 sections. A large widgets section on the top, 4 individual apps on the bottom left, and a stack of small widgets on the right. The main player here is called Nebula, my newest widget. It's fully interactive, letting me move between 3 main views. Home, which shows calendar info, weather stats, and a quick glance at my daily activity. Agenda, which ties into the iOS calendar and reminders. And weather, which gives me more detailed look at the current and upcoming conditions. On the right side of the weather and agenda views, there are shortcuts to the Files app, Notes, and my music player of choice. I'll link Nebula below with 20% discount for the first 50 people who want to support the channel. Alternatively, Ultra members here on the channel get monthly free access to either a wallpaper pack or a widget, and Nebula will be included there by the end of the year. Below Nebula, I keep my Superlist large widget as well, which I use to glance at my daily tasks and use again as an alternative way to dump tasks into. As for the 4 apps on the bottom left, they're very much self-explanatory, so I won't be wasting your time on them. What I want to highlight here though is the widget stack on the right. These are modified versions of my mini drawer widget again, each one holding fewer than 9 apps, giving me some room to personalize them a bit to make them, mine. The first mini drawer is my YouTube hub, where I can launch all my creator tools. The second holds my smart home apps, and the third is dedicated to my car, everything from third-party charging to parking apps. Having this stack of mini drawers, which I switch manually depending on context, is far more personal than any generic folder, and until Apple comes up with something even close to what Oppo or OnePlus are doing with their folders, I'll keep proudly using and promoting my mini drawer widgets. On the dock, I keep 4 essentials: the phone app, my current browser of choice Brave, the settings app, and what I call the Redbubble folder. As I've mentioned before, that folder holds all my social and messaging apps, and its main purpose is simple: to show the red notification bubbles for incoming traffic. Since most of my notifications are turned off, at least the non-essential ones, and I'm talking about sound here, this system lets me stay aware without being interrupted. If there's no sound but a bubble appears, I know there's something waiting that I can check later. This way, no matter how many DMs come in or how persistent a relative might be on Messenger, I won't get carried away or lose focus. If you want to keep the aesthetics of your folders in iOS as clean as possible, you have to get rid of the tile on the top. But you can't simply do that by editing the folder, because once you delete it and then confirm, it comes back in. So the easiest way to do that is to Google invisible character, which pulls a website called editpad.org, and here you can copy an invisible character, go back to the folder in question, tap to edit it, and just paste that invisible character here. And now that folder has no title and it looks much cleaner. Moving on to the control center, everything here is designed around reachability. The tools I use most often are placed as low as possible, starting with individual toggles for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, and low power mode, all essential when traveling. I'm not using the built-in control center widget for these because it's slower and it requires extra taps for something that should be instant. Right beside the main controls, I keep the sliders for volume and brightness, and moving further up, there's the Now Playing widget, which also lets me change the audio output, and focus mode switcher that I can use to quickly toggle Do Not Disturb or Sleep mode when needed. Since I don't use the action button for this, my alert toggle sits just above next to the light and dark mode switch, and the top row is reserved for utilities such as the remote app, screen recording, calculator, and Shazam. I've also added a large flashlight widget up there so I can quickly turn it off without having to unlock the phone if necessary. As promised, let me show you how you can build this mini drawer or medium drawer entertainment widget. So let me take you through it. This is the widget in question that we need to build from scratch. Let's start with opening Widget, and I'll tap on Create New. We're going for a medium size here, so this should be just fine. You can name this anything you like. Entertainment. If we refer back to this one, we need to have 6 icons, some sort of a background to make it more interesting, and add the different tab layers that will open the individual apps. So let's start with the icons first. Tap on the plus icon to add an image. And from the image section, I will choose Web and Maps app icons, which is an entire library of all sorts of famous app icons. So let's say you want to open Netflix. Let's do that. Netflix search, and it might take a second, but you'll find the respective icon for that. I will resize it accordingly, so it needs to be rather small. Now, if you want to change the increments of the way you size this icon, you can go from medium, so move it less or small and do fine adjustments, or go large and just move it around freely. This applies to both the sizing and the origin or the placement of the icon. So in that case, I will shrink the icon and do a rough placement of where it should be. So let's say somewhere over here. And I will do the same for the other 5 icons. So I'll look for image, web and maps, app icon. So let's say Disney. Pick that, go back to sizing, move it, and of course, resize it. Something that you can do here is add rounding. So that happens from these settings, edges rounding,
And you can make it a complete circle, almost, or just keep it something around the 20% mark, 20 to 25% mark. And then you can do the same thing for the remaining 4 icons. Once the icons are placed, the next thing to do is to add tap action layers. These are transparent layers that go on top of each individual icon that will point to the app that needs to be opened. So for example, we need to add a tap action layer for Apple TV. I will tap here, scroll down, and I will choose tap action. And I will move this tap action layer in respect to the icon itself. So I'm going to reduce the size a little bit. And then from the second tab, I will choose for the external action to be open URL, RSS, or shortcut. So I'll tap here and I'll choose Apple's apps. So from here, I'm going to look for TV. That's it. And then the next step is to create 5 more tap action layers for the remaining of the icons. And then the final cherry on top is adding that, background here so that it makes the whole thing a lot more interesting and vibrant. So for that, I will choose a simple image. That image, of course, can be placed locally in the system, like in your image library, or as a file in, let's say, your Files app. So in my case, that will be under here on my phone. It's a red chair that I created. I will place it here and then, of course, position it accordingly. Now, if you want to be able to exit the area of the widget, you can toggle this off, and then you'll have the option to, do something more abstract, like go like this a little bit, maybe position it further like this. And something else you can try is under the settings of the image, you can either reduce the opacity, the alpha, to make it less, appealing, or maybe just leave it at 100% and play with the blend mode. So if you go for something like an overlay or make it, desaturated, it is up to you. You can experiment with those features. And that's pretty much it.
If you enjoyed this video, then you should definitely check out my iPadOS 26 guide right here, which has tips and hidden features that apply to the iPhone as well. Like and subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter, and as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. ThisIsE, over and out.